Okay, so here's another book. It's called The Longevity Project. Very, very interesting study. I really enjoyed this book. It was written by the two doctors on the bottom, Dr. Friedman and Dr. Martin, and it's based on a study started in the 1920s by a Dr. Terman, who is a psychologist at Stanford. And what Dr. Terman set out to do with his study is he pulled 1,500 bright children about the age of 11 and 12 out of school, and he wanted to study how bright children do in society. He lived to about 1947, where he passed away, and these two doctors said, wow, what an interesting opportunity to see what happened to those 1,500 students. And so they tracked them over some 80-year period from when the study was in the 1922. They were about, again, 11, 12 years old. And they looked at death certificates and marriage certificates and divorce certificates and military records and all those type of things. And they discovered some really, really interesting things. First, they discovered that there are threats to our longevity, okay? There are things that we can do that can hurt us, but there are also things that we can do that can help us. Okay. It's okay to be a little neurotic, okay? Hypochondriacs, beware. That's not healthy, okay? Thinking that everything that you think is a terrible thing is bad is not healthy. In fact, probably the most powerful statement I can tell you today is that thoughts are not facts. Just because thoughts are not facts. Just because you think something doesn't make it so. Just because you think something doesn't make it so, okay? But when you've got this black thing growing on your thigh with little hairs growing from it, it's probably time to run to the doctor, okay? So a little bit of neuroticism actually contributes to a longer life. And the reason for that is that people who are very carefree get into trouble. It'll be okay, I can drink the alcohol. I can smoke the cigarette. I can eat the fried food. It'll be okay. It's not true, okay? If you're not a little bit worried about your health and you're futzing around with your health, bad things are going to happen, okay? So let's look at a few more things that they learned from the Longevity Project. There's that social network again, and again, we're now referring to Facebook. The more friends you have, the healthier you are. Whoever complained they had too many friends? Okay, that's like complaining on your deathbed that you didn't spend enough time in the office. Okay? Nobody complains about that, and nobody complains about having too many good friends. We can all benefit from as many good friends as we can find. Next. Nurture marriages and other close relationships. I know that as we get older, sometimes we lose our spouses. A gentleman was telling me earlier today that he just lost his wife after 66 years. Obviously, it's very hard to nurture a marriage at that point. But I'm one of those people that believes, imagine how you would feel if something happened to your spouse, and then treat your spouse as if you now have a second chance. And that really changes your perspective, okay? If you think about all the bad things that can happen and you could potentially lose that person, you won't take them for granted and you'll treat them differently. And I think that's what they mean by nurturing your marriages, okay, and other close relationships. In fact, when we talk about social networks, okay, you need to sometimes talk to other people, okay? You need to vent, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But you also need to be a good ear so that people can talk to you. It's not just about sharing all your tsuris with somebody. It's also about hearing some of their tsuris. Next. Active pursuit of goals. Okay, that goes back to the ikigai of the Japanese, purpose. Okay? What they found in the Longevity Project, and this was very interesting to me, probably one of the most interesting conclusions for me personally, it wasn't about having the ideal job. It was having a job that you could accomplish something at it. That it was a little bit difficult for you, you needed to stretch in order to succeed, but you could succeed. So those who think that they need the ideal hobby, okay, are misguided. It's finding something that gives you pleasure. It's not finding the ultimate pleasure, because you can spend your whole life searching for that ultimate ideal pleasure. It's finding something that will give you some pleasure in life, and that's something that you can get better at it. In fact, in the book Drive by Daniel Pink, he says that the greatest motivator is self-motivation. And self-motivation is driven by three things. One, the freedom to pursue your interests, the belief that you can master that pursuit, and I forget the third thing.
Make sure you...
No, I forget the third thing. I'll come back to that. That was an ad lib. Okay. Next, participate in enjoyable physical activities. Okay. Now, the key phrase there is enjoyable. If you enjoy it, it's not physical work. It's enjoyable. Go for a walk, tend to the garden, wash your car, clean out the garage. Next time, husbands, the wife says, clean out the garage, say, wow, I got a chance to do some physical activity. Okay? It's all about the context in which you view things. It's all about the paradigm. Okay? In the book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Very Highly Effective People, he gives an example about context. And the context is, this guy is sitting on a train. And a man comes on with 2 small children. And the small children are out of control. They're running up and down the train. They're banging into people. And the man's going, why doesn't this guy, who apparently is the father, control these children? And he's getting more upset every moment because the children are knocking into people, and people look like they're getting annoyed, and they're making lots of noise. And the guy can't take it anymore. And he says, this father's got to do something. He turns to the father and he says, you know, your children are out of control. And the father says, you know, you're right. We just came from the hospital and their mother passed away. And suddenly, as everybody here has said, you don't exactly view them the same way anymore. And in fact, as we'll talk about a little bit later, that's how we should deal with stress. Okay? Some people say getting old is a terrible thing. You know what's worse than getting old? Not getting old, okay? It's all about the way we view the things in our life. Oy vey, my neck hurts today. Well, it could be your neck, your hip, your toe, everything else. It's all relative, okay? If you think about the context, if somebody's late, you could think, oh my God, I can't believe it. They're so disrespectful. They're so discourteous. They know I'm waiting for them on time here. They don't show up on time. Or you can say, wow, they must have a good reason because I know they really care. And maybe I hope they're okay. Okay? It's again the context in which you view things that happen to you affect your health. Deep satisfaction with life. Okay, you know, that's a tough one. How do we find a deep satisfaction with life? For some of us, that's not so easy. Okay? Well, guess what? It doesn't happen overnight. I always tell people one of my favorite Chinese proverbs. Man will sit in chair with mouth open for a very long time before a roasted duck flies in. Okay? Things don't just happen. You got to make it happen. You got to keep searching. I could have stayed retired. I could have started counting not only the hours in the week, but the minutes in the week. I could have even gone down to the seconds in the week. By the way, 1,440 seconds in a day. Okay? I really could have gone crazy, but I said, I've got to do something. So I went back and I ran my old organization for a year, and then I found this incredible thing, which I'll get to a little bit later, that led me to found MDPrevent. Deep satisfaction with life. Strong sense of accomplishment. Okay? In his book, Flourish, by Martin Seligman, the professor at the University of Pennsylvania, who many consider to be the father of positive psychology, he says that well-being interrelated with happiness is tied towards few things. One of them is positive emotions. Another one is positive relationships. A third one is engagement. Okay? A fourth one is meaning and purpose. And the fifth one is a strong sense of accomplishment. Okay? Now, how do you get a strong sense of accomplishment? By taking on something that's impossible to complete? No. By taking on things that you think you have the skill set and the suitability and the interest, and as we used in regards to physical activity, enjoyable. Okay? It doesn't have to be the ultimate pleasure from doing it. If helping your child with their math homework is enjoyable, you're lucky. Okay? But try to find things that actually give you enjoyment and engagement that you can succeed at. Remember, it doesn't have to be the perfect job, the perfect hobby, the perfect friend. And by the way, show me a perfect friend, and I'll tell you that you're sleeping. There's nobody perfect. You're not perfect. They're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So, all right, let's move on. Okay, guess what? There's another group of centenarians who we refer to in Yiddish as the Yiddim. So there's been a number of studies, and in fact, there's a big study on the way right now in New York, led by Albert Einstein College of Medicine, where they're looking at these Ashkenazi Jews from Eastern Europe. Let me just catch up here. Okay, and what they've learned is that usually inbreeding, okay, where you're getting married within, they're not marrying their brothers and sisters, but they sometimes marry cousins and whatnot. We as Jews always think of that as a bad thing, 'cause that's how we get the Tay-Sachs disease and whatnot. But it turns out, for this particular group, it's a good thing. They're not getting the same hypertension and cardiovascular disease and neurodegenerative disease that people are typically getting, and they're trying to figure out that longevity gene, if you can learn something and make a pill out of it or something. So they're studying them very carefully. And here's an example of one of those centenarians, okay? This is Lily Port of Scarsdale, who turned, well, she's not quite a centenarian, she turned 98 this year, okay? She's very busy, very busy. She's been to Italy, Hungary, St. Tropez. She's outlived 3 husbands, one age 92, one age 97, one age 102. Okay? She says she watches what she eats because she likes to fit in her clothing, but she also likes to eat bratwurst, chocolate, a little bit of white wine sometimes to relax. But she wants to keep looking good. And I think it's probably apropos. She is on a piece of equipment in a gym, okay? Probably lives, actually she lives in Scarsdale. And she doesn't smoke as well. And she drove a car until last year. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. So, many people are, in fact, living longer. And across, in the United States, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, there was a 5.8% increase in the number of centenarians in the United States since the year 2000. And worldwide, there are now 2 million people 90 or older. In fact, the oldest old are projected to increase in the next, basically, 40 years from 1.9 million to 8.7 million, okay, based on the current rates. And who are those centenarians? So the breakdown is about 88.1% are Caucasians, 7.6% are African American, 4% are Hispanic, and 2.2% are Asian. Worldwide, we are adding about 3 months to our life expectancy every year, and experts are estimating that by 2030, there could be 1 million centenarians in the world. 2030, less than 20 years from now. Okay, so centenarians. What do you think is the ratio of men to women? Women to men, rather. 10 to 1, I heard. 3 to 1. Anybody else? 5 to 1. 5 to 1. The answer is 3 to 1. That does make for some lucky old men. Okay, where do they live? Well, you heard me talk about earlier about all these people get institutionalized, and you're saying, lots of times people say, you know, Dr. Traub, I don't want to live to 90, I don't want to live to 100, I'm going to get put in a nursing home somewhere, so on and so forth. Well, it turns out that quite a number live independently. In fact, the numbers of those living independently, 37.3% live independently, and I assume that they want to live independently. 37.1% live with their families. 23% have nursing care. 3% are in assisted living. Now, if you added up those numbers very quickly, that means that 75% of 90-plus-year-olds are not reliant upon the kindness of strangers. So contrary to what you think, that if you live to your 90s or 100, you're going to be in a nursing home, it's not necessarily true. And that's because the longer you live, the healthier you live. One more time, with feeling this time. The longer you live, the healthier you live. So now you say, wait a second. Well, but am I sick? Am I not sick? Am I living at home? Where it turns out that there's some very interesting numbers. We've got 15% that we call escapers. They've had nothing to the age of 100. 15%, nothing. You say, oh, God, that's not good because I've been sick. Well, we got 43% that had nothing to the age of 80. Nothing to the age of 80. And here's what I consider the best news. 42% were sick before they were 80 and still lived to 100. So those of you sitting here today and said, I already am pre-diabetic or diabetic. I already have high blood pressure or high cholesterol. I already have this and I already have that. It's all over for me. I'm never going to live to 100. These facts disprove that. People who've had problems can still live to 100. And we'll talk about living to 100 in a moment because there's no guarantee of living to 100. Okay, so I put up a picture here of roulette because in a certain way, what you do with your life is like playing roulette. Okay? We know a lot of seniors like to go to the casino and they like to gamble. They like to try to win. So let's use the roulette analogy. Okay? If you take care of yourself, you are significantly improving your odds. If you don't, you are playing roulette, and bad things can happen. Very bad things. Okay? So it's up to you whether or not you want to take that chance. All right. Let's do a quick review of the top 10 things you can do to add more life to your years and many more years to your life. Can you guess any of them? Tobacco, socialize, alcohol, what? Exercise, enjoy nature. All right, let's see. Blow off steam. Stress is a killer. That's because there's a physiological reason why stress is a killer. Stress causes the release of cortisol. Cortisol is a steroid. Steroid suppresses your immune system. Your immune system makes you susceptible to all kinds of diseases. So when you allow stress to get the better of you, you are setting yourself up for illness, even if you are eating and exercising well. So you need to find a way to blow off steam. Write poetry, okay? Wash the car, okay? Talk to a friend. Let the friend talk to you. Exercise. Do whatever you can, but don't let stress build up. If you need a professional, at MDPrevent, we have a health psychologist. She can talk to you about why stress is getting the best of you. Listen, if anybody tells you reduce the stress in your life, okay, they're misguiding you because stress is part of life. You can't really reduce stress in life. You can only change the way that you react to it. And the first way that you change that is by saying, thoughts are not facts. Okay? Just because you think something bad is going to happen doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing's going to happen. Just because you reached a conclusion in your mind doesn't mean that that's the right conclusion. In fact, it's said that if a friend said the same thing to you that you think in your mind, you might take exception to it. Or if a stranger said the same thing to you in your mind, like you think, my friend is not really a good friend, and somebody said that to you, your friend is not really a good friend, you'd say, no, that's not true, I really think they are a good friend. But when you say it to yourself, you believe it. Okay? So don't believe everything you think because it's not necessarily true. 2, quit smoking. Big problem. It causes cancer, it causes lung disease, causes heart disease, etc. Be active. Now, this cute little pudgy guy with his baby fat obviously doesn't have to worry at this point about his cardiovascular disease. But if I superimposed on his face, like a 60-year-old, you might say, hey, he's developing a little bit there of a waistline. And maybe he needs to not lounge around so comfortably. Okay? Be active. We talked about all the different ways. Park your car as far away from where you're going as you can. Take the steps whenever you can. Get up out of your chair. Okay? While watching TV, get up and do this. Anything you can. The more time you spend on your feet during the day, the healthier you are. The more time you sit down in your seat during the day, the less healthy you are. It is genuinely sometimes that simple. Next. This looks like most of us if we peeled away our skins, okay? We are a pill-obsessed society. Pill-obsessed society. Whether it's the pills we get from our doctors, whether it's the pills we get from the supplements and the vitamins and the this and the that. Everything has a pill solution to it. Well, guess what? Come to next week's lecture and you'll find out why that shouldn't be the case. Why you have been snookered. Okay? We don't need to be taking so many pills. That's why ask your doctor, is there any medications that you are on that you can get off of them? Oh, what a novel idea. Okay? Instead of going to the doctor and saying, doctor, I have a problem. You got another pill for it? How about trying to get me off of the pills? Doctor, what do I need to do to get off the pills? Well, guess what? If you come to MDPrevent, that's exactly what we do. We're anti-pills. We're not anti-antibiotics if you have an infection. We're anti-pills where they put you on a pill and then you keep you on that pill for life. We don't see the value in it. We don't see the wisdom. And we're not beholden to any pharmaceutical company, okay? We're not beholden to any philosophy. We do what we think is the right thing to do for you based on the evidence. Keep making new friends. In 1950, what do you think the average American, how many friends they had? 3. How many friends do you think the average American has today? 1.5. So with all these technological advancements, we're going the wrong way. That's why at MDPrevent, we have a community service board and a community events board in our lobby. Because we think you should come in and talk to somebody, not go on the internet and find out what's happening and do things online. We don't think that does anything for anybody. We want to see you, even if you're not coming in for an appointment. Come by, say hello. Become our friend. Let us become your friend. No money involved. It's free to say hello. And in fact, a lot of what we offer is free because Medicare pays for it, but we'll get to that in a moment. Drink less. We talked about alcohol already, so I'll skip that. Maintain a healthy weight. Okay, what is a healthy weight? Well, there's a lot of debate on what's a healthy weight. So we don't exactly know what is a healthy weight, but we do know what is an unhealthy weight. We know if your BMI is above 30, you are officially defined as obese. That's a 5'9" gentleman weighing 200 pounds. Okay? It's not the 700-pound guy on The Biggest Loser. Okay? Bless you. Or the person who's on that couch in that TV show who can't get off the couch. You don't have to be very overweight to be setting yourself up for diabetes and heart disease and cancer and stroke and all those other factors. Okay? And the good news is, and this is to me the most incredible news I've heard in a long time, this week Medicare announced that it's going to cover weight loss counseling. No deductible, no copayment if you qualify. And the assessment to determine whether or not you qualify is also free. In fact, I wrote an op-ed the other day and submitted it to a newspaper saying, why is everybody in the country not applauding wildly? This is the biggest news ever. Medicare's finally getting it. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We all know it, right? We all know it. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's better to prevent the problem than treat it. And yet, and finally, Medicare is finally doing something about it. Eat healthy, eat less. One of the biggest parts of our program that we talk about is nutrition. That's why we have a master's level trained nutritionist, licensed dietitian, trained at New York University, because food, as Hippocrates said, can be thy medicine, and medicine can be thy food. What you eat is the number one single greatest environmental factor that affects what happens in your body. Although a study just came out, and there's been a tug of war between exercise and food, yesterday they came out with a study that said it's exercise. It's food, it's exercise. It's both, okay? Don't shortchange yourself because one study one day says exercise, the next one says food, okay? We will teach you how to eat properly. What does that mean? People say that in order to eat properly, you have to read labels. I say the more foods you eat that have labels, the more unhealthy foods you eat. Okay? In fact, the NIH published something yesterday, and I wrote them a somewhat nasty email because their nutritionist said, if you want to eat well, you really have to become an expert in labels. And I said, how about telling people to eat foods without labels? Okay, so we'll see if I hear back from the NIH. Notwithstanding, eat healthy, eat less. Remember what let's see who really has a good memory. What do the Japanese call eating to your 80% full? Okay, I thought you guys were paying attention. What do the Japanese call it? Hora hachibu. Okay, you're going to go to your friends today, and you're going to tell them, from now on, it's hora hachibu, and they're going to say, excuse me? Purpose. You got to have purpose, okay? You got to have faith, like the song says, but you got to have purpose, okay? You got to have a reason to get out of bed. Find a reason to get out of bed. So it's interesting. The studies show that if you do community service, but you only do it because you want to live longer, it actually doesn't help. But the studies also show that if you do community service for the wrong reason, you will come to do it for the right reason. And when you come to do it for the right reason, community service will actually increase your life. So do community service even though you're only doing it for selfish reasons because you want to live longer, because you will come to appreciate the great value in community service. Hang out with people of like minds, okay? People of like minds are going to make it easier for you to exercise and maintain your diet and so on and so forth. Interesting study just came out. Tell me what you would choose. If you had a choice between being symptomless or living an extra couple of years with bad cardiovascular symptoms, what do you think the people voted for?
2 years.
Which ones?
Longer life.
Longer life. Longer life. So when people say, I don't want to live to 90, trust me, when you get to 90, you're not going to say, I had enough. Okay? And I'll tell you a very painful personal anecdote. I buried my father a few years ago, and he wanted to be buried in Israel, so the whole family traveled to Israel. And as is the ritual custom, before you put the body in the ground, somebody has to identify the body. And my mother was asked to identify the body. And she comes back, and she says something to me that to this day resonates in my brain. She said, after looking at Abba, I am in no rush to die, and I am in no rush to be buried in the ground. And that's where the whole idea of heaven can wait came from. Okay? I believe God helps those who help themselves. Let heaven wait. Sometimes he may have our number and may come calling sooner than we want, but if it's up to us, and it mostly is 70%, let heaven wait. So let me give you a blessing. This is Irving Kahn, 106 years old. And my blessing to you is that I'm sure, as Irving Kahn has found out today, and while blowing out this, that may the most difficult part of living to 100 be blowing out the number of candles you need to blow out. So let's jump to the conclusions here. And in this case, I found this cute cartoon and said, I didn't just jump to conclusions, I hopped and skipped first. So this is Nostradamus, okay? And I use him, well, this is a rendition. Nobody really knows what Nostradamus looked like. It was a long time ago. I put this up to say, you don't need to be Nostradamus to make some very profound predictions. And those profound predictions basically are that if you don't take care of yourself, bad things will happen. And if you take care of yourself, you can make good things happen. In fact, let me read you a quote from the Centers for Disease Control. Although chronic diseases are among the most common and costly of all health problems, there is now indisputable evidence of the power of prevention because modifiable health risk behaviors are responsible for much of the illness, suffering, and early death related to chronic disease. And another quote from the Institute for Clinical Systems Improvements that say that lifestyle changes are associated with a decade or more of increased life expectancy and significantly lower mortality rates. So again, one does not need to be Nostradamus. One does not need to have a crystal ball. One does not need to be a biblical prophet to tell you the longer you live, the healthier you've been. Okay, and this is a cute poster. It says, I've always said I don't want to live forever, but that's not to say I'm ready to go tomorrow either. This is a snapshot of the MDPrevent Center. We built a beautiful center. We have offices for psychology and for the nutritionists and for the nurse practitioners and the doctors to see patients. We have classrooms. We have educational facilities. We have a cooking demonstration kitchen. We have created something unlike anything else you've ever seen before, all for one purpose, to help you live healthier and longer lives. What does MDPrevent have for you? Annual wellness visit. Come in. It's 100% free. No deductible, no copayment if you have Medicare. We'll review your medication, supplements, and vitamins. We'll actually, look, a lot of people, who's on calcium? Okay? 1,000, 1,200, something like that? Yeah. How many of you, did your doctor actually ask you, what do you eat, to figure out how much calcium you're actually getting in the food you eat? By show of hands. Whose doctor actually asked them what do they eat before making the recommendation? So you say, oh, so what's the big deal, some extra calcium? I'll tell you what the big deal is. There's a number of studies that now show those calcium pills you're popping is the same calcification that you're getting in your arteries that are clogging your arteries and leading to heart disease. So you don't need 1,000 or 1,200 if you're eating lots of products fortified with calcium. We take the time to have that discussion with you because we think it's important, because we're not fans of pills for just the sake of them. 2, we have a program called Lean. Again, great news. If you have Medicare and you qualify, it's free. To determine if you qualify, it's free. For the rest of the people, some insurances may start paying for it, but not yet. This is a program that's based on a very successful Veterans Health Administration program that was implemented 5 years ago. Proven success. We took the program, we significantly enhanced it, okay? I am so confident that this program will help you lose weight and get healthy is a money-back guarantee, okay? Money-back guarantee. Doesn't help you, you're not satisfied with it, we give you back your money. We don't want your money if we don't help you. MDPrevent is all about helping people. We'll help you develop a nutritionist plan. Who's ever sat down with a nutritionist here and developed a nutrition plan? Almost nobody, okay? Who's ever sat down with a certified exercise physiologist, developed an exercise plan? Again, a couple of hands. Who's ever sat down with a health psychologist and developed a good life plan, a plan of behavioral modification? Anybody? Psychologists, one person. Psychologists and 2 people. They're not just 3 people. They're not just about telling them, what your parents did to you when you were 5 years old, okay? They can also help you handle some of your current stresses and come up with a plan to live a healthier life. We have nutritional seminars. We have a healthy cooking class where you get to actually eat the food. We have yoga classes for all levels. And finally, we're also a certified Silver Sneakers fitness facility. The next lecture, which I promise you will be an eye-opener, okay, that's a promise. Why taking supplements and vitamins are usually a waste of money and may be harmful. Some big studies have come out with some pretty scary results. Don't miss this lecture. I promise you it will be interesting. So, MDPrevent, Preventive Medicine and Learning Centers, our lean weight loss program, which we think is the best weight loss program ever created in the United States because it combines work with a team of professionals and classes which are interactive, experiential. Everybody know what experiential means? You actually experience the class, okay? Today I've been doing most of the talking, but in those classes, you get to talk, you get involved with the other people, you become friendly with them. Over the 18-hour program spread across 12 weeks, you really get to know each other, you really get to know more about yourself. For example, I've always hated potatoes, okay? I like French fries, but I hate potatoes. I didn't know why I hated potatoes. So I took the lean program for myself. By the way, I've lost 20-something pounds since starting MDPrevent. But I took the program and I finally figured out that the reason I hate potatoes is because my mother kept making potato meals for my older brother, and I really hated those meals, okay? And she insists on always making it. So from that classroom, the program makes you stop and think about your relationship with food. And in my own case, 50-something years old, I finally figured out why I have this adversity to potatoes. All right, at this point, I'm happy to take any questions from the audience.
Where are your centers?
Our first center, the question is, where is our center? Our first center is located at the corner of Military and Linton. I hate to use this reference, but we're near Bagel Twins, okay? Because I'm not a friend of processed foods and whatnot, and you know, bagels are mostly processed foods. So Military and Linton on that campus. Next question. Yes?
Nothing was mentioned about sleep.
Sleep is very important. And in fact, the question is, nothing was mentioned about sleep. And I apologize for that, but sleep is very important, and I'll tell you why. The studies show that when you don't get enough sleep, you actually release additional growth hormone, and you release additional leptin, which is an appetite stimulant, and you suppress something called ghrelin, which is an appetite suppressant. So when you don't sleep, you get hungrier and you release more growth hormone. So you say, well, what's wrong with growth hormone? I don't mind growing a little bit. Well, it turns out that they now know that taller people have an increased incidence of cancer, and a tribe in South America that are all pygmies and have no growth hormone have no cancer, and that the spike that you get from not getting enough sleep of growth hormone is actually cancer causing. So sleep is incredibly important. There's about 5% of the population, 5%, that can function very well with 5 hours of sleep or less. If you're not one of them, you can't become one of them, okay? You're either got a genetic predisposition to have 5 hours less or you don't. So sleep is incredibly important, and also when you don't sleep enough, you get more stress, and we talked about stress. So I apologize, sleep is incredibly important to extending your life. Yes?
Anything regarding memory loss and how to...
So my third lecture is about dementia and lifestyle, and I think that will be a very interesting lecture because scientists now have learned a lot between the connection between the two. A lot of it is observational studies, and in fact, you know, everybody knows about Alzheimer's, but there's more than one type of dementia. So I'll talk about that in lecture number 3. Yes?
You referenced very quickly a plant-based diet. Do you subscribe to Dr. Esselstyn and
So the question was, I referenced a plant-based diet, and do I subscribe to Esselstyn and Ornish's very harsh approaches to dieting? And the answer is no, because I don't think that those are sustainable diets. Esselstyn is a doctor that tested these very, very pure, raw vegan diets, and I think it's very hard to sustain yourself on that. And one of the keys to being successful at eating healthy is to be somewhat practical. Now, that said, everybody says, well, the key to eating healthy is moderation. And I don't agree with that, because you don't give a drug addict a little bit of drugs in moderation. You don't give an alcoholic a little bit of alcohol in moderation. I think if you want to eat healthy, you've got to cut processed sugar and flour completely out of your diet. That's the minimum. And I come back to eat more foods without labels than foods with labels. Okay. Yes?
What about Dr. Weil? What do you think of his other approaches?
So Dr. Weil, I was asked what I think of Dr. Weil. I think Dr. Weil is a very smart guy. He's been doing this for a long time. His integrated approach in his center in Arizona, I think, does a lot of good things. I think the problem with Dr. Weil and Dr. Ornish and the Cleveland Clinic, they all want you to come there, spend a week or two, and then come back to your home. And I think that's a problem because you need to go home and come back and go home and come back. You need to develop skills on how to talk to your spouse. For example, in my own house, when I changed my diet, my wife wasn't very happy. So we're not ordering Pizza Hut anymore, she says. And I say, you can order whatever you want. I don't want it. But of course, it's harder for one person to eat a whole pizza. So my point is, not necessarily, my point is that those programs are great to kind of do a very quick tune-up, but you need a program, and that's why I created MDPrevent. You need something in the community that you can keep coming back to all the time, and also that it's affordable. That's the important thing. These programs, you know, the Dr. Weils and the Pritikins and the Cleveland Clinics, they cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Our program is less than $1,000. Yes?
What do you think of reclass shots?
Reclass shots.
You never heard of reclass?
It's for osteoporosis.
Bone density.
Instead
Oh.
of calcium, or a lot of extra calcium.
Say you don't like it.
You know, I don't know the answer to that, and one of the things you will get from me is a straight answer when I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer, I can't answer that question. I will tell you that I think what's going on with calcium in this country is a tragedy. People encouraging all this calcium. It's the vitamin D3 that's very important, but also with vitamin D3, as you'll learn in the next lecture, taking too much D3 is also toxic. So just because a little bit of it is good doesn't make a lot of it better. Next question. Yes.
The lean program is covered with Medicare. Why do you have a money-back guarantee?
For people below the age of 65 who want to lose weight.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Can you over-exercise?
Absolutely. In fact, the study came out today, this morning. I read thousands of studies a year that showed that endurance athletes cause heart damage. And they've known this for a long time. Marathon runners are damaging their hearts. Professional athletes are damaging their hearts. You can over-exercise. You do not need to put a strain on your body that is excessive. There's some belief that you're using up your life energy when you're pushing yourself beyond a reasonable limit. You should never get beyond the fact a good exercise is one in which it's difficult to sing a song. Okay? If you can sing a song, then you're not, well, listen, you got to sit down with exercise physiologists because if you want to reverse heart disease, you got to get to a point where you're exercising where you can't carry on a conversation. If you want to get some good aerobic exercise, you're exercising to the point where you can't sing a song. But getting up and moving around like the Japanese and the Sardinians, okay, and getting, you know, the proverbial 10,000 steps in a day is also very helpful. But you absolutely, positively can over-exercise. But don't use that for an excuse of over-exercise. It's very difficult to over-exercise. You got to know your own body, okay? You got to know your body. Something hurts, stop. Because it hurts today doesn't mean it'll hurt tomorrow. Stop today, come back to it tomorrow. Yes, any other questions? Yes.
I'm 82 and I see all my friends and a lot of people younger than myself, they all seem to lose their ability to walk. What is happening to us?
It's remote controls. It's cars taking us to exactly where we need to go. It's the use it or lose it. If you're not staying physically active, you're losing the use of your muscles. Okay? We lose 1% of our muscle mass every year after the age of 50. That's why at MDPrevent, our exercise physiologist develops an exercise plan that deals with not only physical strength, but endurance, flexibility, aerobic capacity, your breathing capacity, because those are the 4 components of an exercise plan. Yes, any other questions? For if you don't have Medicare, it's a very complicated problem. It starts with if you have Medicare, Medicare covers it. If you have a BMI of 30 and above. If your BMI is below 30, Medicare does not cover it. The cost of the program is $985, but that includes 5 clinical consultations, all the blood work, 12 weeks of programming, which is 18 hours of programming, a complimentary fitness class, an exercise shirt, a pedometer, and you get to come in and talk to us anytime that you have a question, before, during, or after the program. Okay? We're happy to take your phone call. We're happy to come in and answer your questions for you. Yes?
Let them know that you guys, some people do.
Okay, a couple of things. We're going to do if you fill out your survey right now, we can enter you in the raffle. We're giving away 1 free lean program today. Also, next week we will be here, and if you want to sign up for your annual wellness visit, free consultation, or you want to sign up for a screening to see if you qualify for the lean program, we can also do that as well.